The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Humanity First. My name is Peter Evers, and I have the privilege of working at BAMSI. We are going to have a great show today, and we're going to talk about one of our services at BAMSI, which is our helpline. And I think perhaps many people who are listening to this have benefited from Helpline. It is the very definition of a multi-service agency when we're able to help people out with basic needs, that people have for living. And that made me think a little bit this week and last week, because there was a vote referendum in one of our neighboring communities, Milton, and that referendum was around housing, affordable housing for working people, part of the MBTA Act, that any town that has an MBTA station has to have housing that is affordable for people near the station, which makes an awful lot of sense. This past week, the people of Milton voted against that in a referendum, which meant immediately that the state of Massachusetts announced that they would not be getting grants and help with other infrastructure projects that they have, which is a real shame and totally antithetical to what our state is proposing for people. That is, that we should be providing affordable houses for homes for individuals and for families in a state where there's a lot of work to go around, and that work isn't always paid at the highest levels. We are not taking collective responsibility for people, and we're not encouraging people to be in a situation where they can live affordably and they can work. And as far as that goes, it really is a threat to our way of life, because we're going to end up with cities where people can't afford to live, who are providing services for people who can. And it would again be an example of us having a two-tiered system, which nobody in this country wants, I am sure. We're going to talk about Helpline and what Helpline can do to help some of those people, and maybe talk a little bit about what we can do to help people be independent and grow their own wealth and income as they move through careers, and what we can do to help with that. So we'll be back in a few. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm an essential worker here at BAMSI, and I'm a nurse. Nurses are essential here at BAMSI because as nurses, we really have the opportunity to make an impact. We have very small ratios, so we have the opportunity to really learn everything about the person served and be able to give the best care. It really serves such a great purpose for me as being a nurse, and really why I came into nursing. Learn more about nursing opportunities at bamsijobs.org.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Humanity First. My name is Peter Evers, and as promised, we have a couple of superstar guests in the program today. As you know, we often talk about programs that we have at BAMSI, an organization that serves Brockton and beyond. And of those 120 so programs, there is Helpline. And we have had many conversations about Helpline in the past. And so our director of the program, Curtis Felix is here. Curtis, hi. Welcome to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Nice for coming in. And also Alice Cole, who is our information and referral specialist. Hi, Alice. How you doing?
Hi, thanks.
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Good. So, often I am, whenever I'm talking about BAMSI, for instance, to the mayor, who is a regular contributor to this show, he will say, oh, BAMSI, yeah, Helpline. Helpline is so wonderful. And I always think of Helpline as a program that sort of packs a punch for its size. It's not a great big program like some of our residential programs, but it is doing work that is so important to the citizens of Brockton. What I love about it really is it's the definition of what a multi-service agency is. And, many years ago, I worked for Roxbury Multi-Service Center in the early 90s. And there was a helpline there. And it was on Blue Hill Avenue. And it was the most popular program in the agency in terms of people needing something. And when we look at need, right, and when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter, housing, and sustenance, of course, is right at the bottom of that. If you're not able to satisfy many of those needs, you can't really begin to think about therapeutic interventions, clinical work. So that's why it really is the pillar of what we do. And the origin of Helpline goes way back, probably 30 years in BAMSI, when somebody sort of said, we need to be able to meet the needs of our population. Brockton, as we know, is a high-need population. There is a great deal of socioeconomic pain in this agency, and as we were talking about in the monologue, there are real problems in Brockton that need state assistance. That are in our schools and in housing, and that I think reflects what in terms of the people who you're hearing from, Curtis. So let's begin, Curtis, maybe by just talking a little bit about Helpline. What do we do on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. So the goal of the Helpline as an information referral program is to offer primary preventive services and to, as you said, to respond to local needs and offer social services and information on obtaining those needs, whether it's resources, services, or programs within BAMSI or even outside of BAMSI. The Helpline provides help to people in need to meet their most basic needs, as we've said, things like rent and utility assistance, food, clothing, medical supplies, prescription drug assistance, shelter, transportation, other services just like those. We help a lot with immediate services and things that, like you said, are baseline, have to have in order to survive day in and day out. So we face a population that's not of course not in the most desperate of needs, but of course it's a population that needs services.
Yeah. I wonder, this last 4 years have probably been the most difficult for many people in terms of the pandemic and in terms of the inflation that happened after that. And when you think about fuel going up over those times, I would imagine your work in terms of referrals in times when times are difficult is a lot heavier than your workload when it isn't, for populations like this. If let's say if fuel charges go up from say $2.50 to $4 like they did, are you immediately? I was asking this question. Are you immediately inundated with help for fuel?
Right.
For
Well,
instance?
we have a lot of callers who need fuel assistance. So some we can help, some we can't. But yes, there are a lot of callers, and more generally, utility assistance, electric, gas.
So oftentimes those are families, and this really is where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? These are families that are making difficult decisions on a daily basis. They're making decisions about, do I heat my house or do I feed my children?
Right. The decisions are very difficult because the math just does not work for a lot of people. So,
it's really interesting in conventional wisdom, and I've read this throughout my life, that, people who are poor aren't very good at budgeting. I would argue that they're brilliant.
They're very good at budgeting. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, because they have a lot of practice doing that. Not,
right.
People who have means are not thinking in terms of, do I take half a pill today or a full pill? They're not thinking, do I put food on the table and go down and get clothing for my kids so that we don't have to put the heat on, right?
Right. They deal in very hard questions. Yes.
There are, I think BAMSI comes at this work through a lens of social justice and many other types of justice. We do an awful lot of work in this community. I wonder why Brockton has really struggled socioeconomically over the years. Curtis, you've worked in and around this environment. Why is there so much need in Brockton?
for one, Brockton has seen a large growth in terms of population. Already a small city surrounded by many small towns, very small towns, especially a farming community almost, I think, in a couple of border towns. But small city, large population, not enough resources. It's a sort of a old age tale of just lack of need in a large population, because it's not just Brockton that are looking to access these resources. It's also the larger county, surrounding Brockton as well, that are looking for the same type of services that we all need to survive.
Yeah, I mean, I think often think about that. Brockton is a gateway city, right? And we're proud of that. I've worked in Brockton since 1990, and have seen waves of new Americans come into our community, and we have welcomed those people with open arms over the years, and that is a testament to the multicultural nature of the town. I don't think necessarily it's got the support that it should have done from the state around that. And of course, we're seeing that with an influx of new Americans at the moment with the welcoming centers and the shelters. Are you experiencing any new need from the new Americans who are coming in and into the local shelters and the welcoming centers?
Well, we do get some calls, people looking for immigration advice. So, that does happen. They have a lot of the same issues that other callers have. A lot of it is related to jobs, incomes, benefits, and
linguistic issues, I should think, as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Healthcare is the big one as well. Accessing and applying for it as well is something that we've seen be a recurring theme in terms of new families coming into the community, basically. We've also seen an array of food insecurity as well, accessing public services like DTA or WIC or local food pantries as well, getting familiar with that as well, and just making sure that they are aware of the eligibilities that they do have to these services that are seen baseline.
Yeah. And a reminder, you're listening to Humanity First here. And, speaking of humanity, and just a big plug for BAMSI doing its food drive every third Thursday of the month, where we deliver about 17,000 pounds of food to folks in our tower blocks. And, that is meeting a need, but there's so much more need than that. Alice, talk us through what does a normal day look like? Because maybe there's a bit of conventional wisdom that thinks like, oh, Helpline just dole out money. Now, I know that happens, and in a minute...
We do dole out some money.
We do. And in a moment, I'll ask Curtis, how do we get the money to dole out? But first of all, talk us through a normal day. What kind of things do you come across?
Well, I take calls. And the typical caller, it might be regarding rental assistance. It might be about homelessness or near homelessness. It might be some kind of benefit issue. It may be more personal situations or...
So you might get a call from somebody who is in a domestic violence situation that is looking for housing. So really, it really covers the whole gamut, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I think about transportation systems. There was a wonderful little, and people get mad at me for saying this, but there's a wonderful map, a meme, which is actually on Instagram at the moment, where it shows the rail lines of America, and then it shows the rail lines of Europe. And, transportation has been always in this country something that you're on your own around pretty much. And I think BAT do a reasonable job, but transportation, especially for new Americans, is very, very difficult. If somebody had a car and that car broke down, could we help them fix it?
I have not come across much assistance for car repair, and I do get callers who need that. Yeah. Of course, you lose your car, then you lose your job, and then it's all downhill from there. There really is not that much assistance for cars, I don't think.
Something we should probably look into.
Right.
Yeah. So, Curtis, how do we get money? I mean, because many of our programs are funded by the state. Not really the case, right, with Helpline?
Not currently, yes. So a lot of the funding that we get, we like to call pass-through funds, is grant and, Yeah, grant-based and contract-based, which means that we're doing a service for however long the contract is. And that service can include something as small as maybe providing coats or, helping folks with wrapped applications as well. But usually we apply year round. We have a development team that's actively searching throughout the calendar year, as well as residual contracts or grants that we usually get yearly. A lot of those are currently for elderly, specifically utility assistance. Usually it's called. Usually it's for when the cold season happens, when folks see their, national grid bill, utility bills, oil bills all increase. We usually have a lot of assistance geared towards that community.
Yeah. Give a shout out to some of our big sponsors.
Oh, absolutely. One of our great sponsors we have is the Goddard Wales Foundation. Yeah. They've been, since I've been with us, but I know they've been providing assistance for the helpline for like a good decade, or at least over a decade, as well as they just changed the name, Howard Foundation. I know they changed their name to something different. Yeah. So it's been another grant that's been great for us and yearly coming and increasing too, because the increasing I think is important. Because it's always nice if, we get grant money to give out to this person served, but to be able to increase that availability or that fund, it just helps us help the community as well.
Yeah, well, helping somebody a couple of years ago was probably 150% of the money that you're giving to people now because of inflation and high cost of living standards at the moment. As I think about Helpline, it is so basic and in terms of meeting people's need, and it's so understandable. And that's why I think sometimes people like the mayor are just so grateful because people really, really are sailing close to the wind when it comes to resources, when it comes to housing, all of those things which are, the basic needs of human beings. One of the things I think about Helpline a lot is, what's the next stage for Helpline? And so as we think about help, there's a, the old adage of, a hand out and hand up, right? That we can help people when they're in need, which is so important. But is the next phase of Helpline to begin to help people to sort of stand on their own? For instance, there are social impact bonds, right? And so just very briefly, social impact bonds are actually offered by for-profit companies to invest in the success of a community. In Britain, where I'm from, they did that with the probation service and the prison service in terms of developing programs that kept people out of incarceration. Which was massively successful. One of the things I think is that Brockton is a young town compared to many others. There are many people who have great energy and want to work, oftentimes want to work for themselves. What about something like a hothouse project for growing young entrepreneurs, something like that with some social impact leverage as well? What do you think about that? Do you think that's the next stage for Helpline?
Absolutely. I think in part, especially COVID did a lot in terms of changing perspectives, changing where we want to service or mainly service. So, and as I said, the goal of the Helpline is currently to, provide preventive services. And as great as providing preventive services are and much needed, we always want to uplift our person served as well. And in terms of uplifting, it's providing those resources or the capability, the ability to uplift yourself or to find something, a supplemental income, additional income or something of the sorts for that person served to get them out of their circumstance that they're in.
Yeah. Alice, do you see that as a next step? I mean, you're dealing with folks every day. You hear these stories every day. I'm sure we probably get people coming back quite often asking.
Yes, we do. We have repeat callers. I think a lot of it, the foundation of it is really income. I mean, Brockton is such an expensive city that, for somebody that's lower or middle income, it's just not sufficient when you've got rents $2,000 and up. So
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, to further that point, I read that in 2000, the average cost of a house in Brockton was $325,000. Now we're looking at $450,000. So, this, I don't know whether we can call this a gateway city anymore when it is so difficult to get here. And, many people are coming from Randolph, many people are coming from other places as well. It really is an issue of supply and demand. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, there are communities like Milton who have just voted against having affordable housing for working people near an MBTA line. And that's a sad reflection, I think, on this joint responsibility that we all have.
Right.
Yeah. So sorry, Alex, did you want to say something?
No.
We have actually run out of time, but there is so much to talk about, and hopefully you can come back in 6 months and we can check where you're at.
That would be nice. Thank you,
Alice. Curtis, thank you so much.